All right, welcome back, Michigan fans, to the Michigan Superfan Review 2014, our fifth season, Halsey? Is it our fifth season?
It sounds about right. I know there's been a lot of shitty football in 5 years.
Well,
I don't remember too many positive podcasts.
Well, the podcast is definitely evolving. We have this new thing, this Google Hangouts on air, so we're going to be broadcasting live. Now, we're trying to work out the technical kinks. Eventually, Jose's going to get a webcam and a microphone, and then you won't just have to stare at my mug the whole time. But I got Jose on the phone right now, on the phone line, so I'll be staring at the phone, pretending like he's there every now and then, and we'll do this. Jose, how you been, buddy? Tell me about your summer.
Oh, man, it's been a great summer. It's gone fast. The weather in Michigan's been just pure Michigan beautiful. It's been a cooler summer than normal. Lots of days in the 80s and 70s with no humidity. That's downstate. Upstate's still been pretty chilly. But it's been awesome. The kids are great. So, all of a sudden, you turn around, you flip the calendar, and here's football season staring in the grill.
It's unbelievable. And by the way, that Pure Michigan campaign, Halsey, that's effective. I mean, I get those commercials in L.A., and it's just caught on like wildfire.
Yeah, I'm sure you're all making fun of it. I'm sure you're looking at the TV going, there's no doubt, sitting in L.A., there's no damn way I'm going to Michigan to Michigan's little Bavaria or going to fish or anything all the way up in Michigan.
No, I will say this. The heat in L.A., in the Valley especially, is so suffocating that after a while you wish, pine for cooler weather. So my appreciation for the cold weather and the Four Seasons has actually increased dramatically living in the Valley of Los Angeles.
Well, if you're going to make pornos there, you might as well be in a hot, sweaty place.
Yep, that's what I do. Basically, I make pornos all day. That's how I make my living.
Not you, but in general.
Halsey, we got a lot to talk about, buddy. We've had a lot of time to reflect on the 2013 season. We got the 2014 season upon us, starting with Appalachian State. First of all, you've had time to let it sink in, months now. What is your reflective, final sort of thought process on the 2013 season?
Worse than I thought, I think, even at the end. The Ohio State game, frankly, and then the fight that we put up, and even going for the win now is just in memory compared to how we didn't show up in the bowl game and the embarrassment that we had up in East Lansing. And I think the losses stick with you harder than the victories anyway. But that's what happened in East Lansing last year. Stuck to me in a way that few games have. Probably since Appalachian State, if not even going further back. Maybe even the Hail Mary against Colorado. And, as we talked a little bit last year, that Michigan State game was the first game and only game I've ever walked out early from. And it's because I was absolutely embarrassed by the way our team performed, by the way our team was prepared, and by the way they faced adversity. It was absolutely disgusting. And if that's what we can expect from this program, if that's the kind of toughness we can expect from Brady Hoke's program, then I'd want the plug pulled now. And we know that's not going to happen, so we'll let 2014 play out. And my gut feeling is we'll let 2015 play out as well. I'd be shocked if we still have the same athletic director in a year. With that, I can't tell you about the football coach. How I can like a guy so much from a personal level like I do Brady Hoke and be so unimpressed with him from a football coaching standpoint. It's hard. It's hard on me. And frankly, I'm at the point now that I can't say apathy's kicking in, but I'm sure after 10 years without a Big Ten championship, this will be a lost decade for me and for every other Michigan fan. Yeah, it's like, I think most Michigan fans think it went from Fritz Chrysler to Bo Schembechler. We know that didn't happen. We know that there were some lost decades in there. And clearly the 2000s have been a lost decade. I got nothing good to say about what we've really seen out of the new millennium, that's for sure.
Well, Halsey, there's a lot to unpack there, so let me just sort of try to tackle that piece by piece. First of all, now we talked about this in the past, so I don't want to rehash it too much, but just to be clear, is your reflective thought on Michigan State the fact that we basically got blown out and had no chance to win from the get-go, or was it that it was to Michigan State? Because Michigan State was a top team last year, Rose Bowl winners, Big Ten champs, 11-1 season. They were an excellent team, Halsey. So is it that Michigan it was one of the few times you've seen Michigan get blown out with no chance to win, or was it specifically because it was Michigan State? What about that loss stuck in your craw so heavily?
I think it's both. I don't think you can decouple it, because Michigan State is a program that they were better, and frankly, we lost a lot of games to Michigan State in the 90s, not so much in the 2000s, but certainly in the 90s. We lost some games to Michigan State we had no business losing. But for their program to dominate Michigan that much, for it not to even be close, and even worse, for us to give up like the way we gave up, and for us to look as soft as we were, and look the entire season, it's just unforgivable to me. And there are unforgivable losses, and that is one, and I don't know if Brady Hoke has enough time to win me back.
Well, in looking at last season, in seasons past, Jose, we talked about the Michigan State game being the turning point. Certainly under Rich Rod, when he's had these fast starts, then you go up against Michigan State, lose, and then we'd crumble. Last year was a little bit different. Last year it seems as though the Penn State loss was the turning point for the season, and then the Michigan State loss really sort of sealed the deal on the fate of the season. That loss to Penn State, a lot of people were upset at the fourth quarter game management, coaching, offensive play calling. Now Al Borges is gone. Doug Nussmeier is installed as the offensive coordinator, an Alabama alum essentially from the Saban coaching tree. Halsey, what is your outlook on our offense and looking at the new coordinator, especially in regard to Al Borges and the global dissatisfaction the Michigan fan base had with him over the last 3 years?
Well, I'm excited, obviously, for a new coordinator as opposed to Borges. But, to me, last year it wasn't a breakdown of just one side of the football. Clearly there were breakdowns on both sides of the football, particularly on the defensive side that, I've been hearing for 4 years what a genius Madison is. So show me. Freaking show me something. If I don't see it this year, I want him gone too. And Nussmeier, so you hear from Sammy Gardner that he sits down with Nussmeier, and that's the first time that a football coach has taught him to identify the middle linebacker. Excuse me? Now, I understand that that's a skill that you probably should have in middle school playing quarterback, but that sort of stuff wasn't reviewed with this kid before. And as far as you look at the outlook of the coaching staff, how is the offensive line coach Funk still coach at Michigan? Explain that one to me. Forget about the coordinators. Think about this. Our offensive line last year was a first-round NFL pick, was the worst offensive line I've ever seen. This year we're starting freshmen, sophomores, and I think a junior across the line. And how is this guy allowed to keep his job? Where's the accountability for that turkey to keep his job? Because everybody keeps saying this offensive line might be worse than last year's. How in the hell could it possibly be worse than last year's offensive line?
Well, I don't think it will be, Halsey. I don't think our offensive line will be worse. I think essentially with the inside zone scheme that Nussmeier brings from Alabama to Michigan, I think the way that it's developed through spring ball, I think the fact that basically Devin Gardner was under assault every single game last year, and it felt like he had. And there was a statistic that SB Nation did that in the first and third quarters, Devin Gardner had a higher passer rating than in the second and fourth quarters, possibly attributing it to just fatigue and overall getting beat down in each game. And coming out at halftime having a better performance than through the fourth quarter getting beat down again. So I think I have full faith that our offensive line will be better, if not for any other reason, then I can't imagine a worse offensive line.
Well, and that's the only argument I got. I can't imagine a worse offensive line, so by default we'd have to be better. So I guess we'll see. And it takes offensive lines a little while to come together. And then I get that too. So, grade them I guess Breda by the time Michigan we roll into East Lansing this year. So again, man, it's just I can sum it up best with the email I got from a good friend that sits next to me or near me at the big house, and he wrote, he said, I've been a season ticket holder for 30 years, and this is the first time I'm not looking forward to the start of football. And I think that's just the general malaise that is around Michigan football right now. There's no excitement. There's no buzz. Everybody's just kind of holding their breath and praying for the best and expecting the worst, because frankly, in the last 10 years, we've got nothing to believe in other than the worst is going to happen.
Well, I think what's most...
And with this schedule, 8-4 is worst case scenario. I mean, if this guy wins, think about this. Brady Hoke can go, with this weekend pitiful schedule, Brady Hoke can go 10-2 this year. So let's say he beats Notre Dame. If he loses to Michigan State and he loses to Ohio State, if he loses to Michigan State in the same fashion that they lost last year, I don't want him to have fun. You can't argue bring the guy back. Even at 10-2, if we get embarrassed by Michigan State, the way we show we have absolutely no mental or physical toughness.
I think, Halsey, I think you have a vision for what you want Michigan football to be, and I think I agree with that vision. I do think from a practical standpoint, if Brady Hoke goes 10 wins, even 9, even 8, he's coming back. 8, I think, is really the threshold marker for me. I expect a 9-win season based on sort of looking through the schedule and sort of predicting, where we might potentially lose, a more certain loss, perhaps a 50-50 loss, and then one of those games that we always tend to lose that we're not supposed to lose. And given the fact that we don't do well on the road and all that jazz, I'm pegging it at around 8 or 9 wins. 9 would be my hope. 8 would be my bottom in terms of not satisfaction, but lack of gut-wrenching disappointment. If we're going below 8 games, practically speaking, I think that's when we're looking for a change, because I don't see how another 7-win season could justify another season for Brady Hoke. I think 8 creates more of an I think 8 still creates an argument, and I think at 9 he's pretty safe, and at 10 I think, practically speaking, Holes, and I know that's separate from your own expectations for the program, that at 10 wins he's more than safe.
Unfortunately, I think you're right. Not because I don't like the guy, because I genuinely like the guy, but if he loses 2 games this year and it's to Michigan State and Ohio State, clearly we are no better off and not that much better of a team than we were at 7-5 and 8-4 with this schedule that we have in front of us. And if they want to give him a break and they want to give him another year, go right ahead, because it's just one more year that wasted. One more year in the history of Michigan football wasted, where this coaching staff and this athletic director have not kept up the tradition of Michigan football and played like and coached like and administered like tradition demands out of Michigan football.
Well, I think, Halsey, my biggest problem isn't just the micro, and I'm using this term in relation to the entire college football landscape. It's not just the micro problem of one program's inefficiency or ineptitude or lack of excellence at the highest level that we've experienced at Michigan. It's that on the macro level, for the first time in probably a long time, I'm resigned to the fact that there is a higher tier in college football, or so it seems, and that's teams down south in the SEC and like a Florida State that seem to be a cut above the rest of the country. And then for Michigan, it's not even like the national championship is even possible. It's not even in a possible realm of things. It's if we can beat Michigan State, that's a successful season. If we could beat Ohio State on the road for the first time since 2000, we'll all be over the moon. And then a Big Ten championship seems like, wow, what an accomplishment that would be. It's the fact that on the national stage, we're not even in the discussion. It's not even something that most Michigan fans are considering. It's not even like a hope and faith scenario that Bud Selig touts for Major League Baseball, that every team at the start of the season should have hope and faith that they'll be able to compete. I think we'll compete, but Halsey, we are not competing for a national championship. And this is probably the first year, even though probably other fans have been there longer, for me where that is just so seeped into my thinking that my expectations are nowhere near where it was as a kid, even as a student, even as maybe, no, I would say even I think as far back as being a student, which is over a decade ago.
Well, I mean, that's the very problem. Maybe we're not in the national championship discussion every year, but we were certainly always in the Big Ten championship discussion. Or now, people are wondering if we're not the third or fourth best team in our own division, much less a two-division conference. And that's what kills me, Reza. That's what our expectations have dropped and dropped and dropped, and the prices have gone up and up and up, and the experience has gone down and down and down, and that's what's killing me. That's what tears at my very core. I'll tell you one thing. You're right. Maybe there are hierarchies of college football programs right now, but at least they're both Schembechler. And I'd even make the case through Gary Moeller. Michigan's saying was anytime, anywhere. So I guarantee those top teams would come to Ann Arbor, and a lot of them found feet of clay, and a lot of them got beat. Now there's no home field advantage. Christ, we got Appalachian State coming back for the second go around this weekend. So at one time it was anytime, anywhere, and maybe we weren't in serious national championship discussions by November. But by God, we'd play with anybody, anytime, and you better believe they knew that they were playing the best team they could.
And Jose, the real difficulty with the situation overall is that it's complicated and layered on this level. I, for one, and I'll speak just for myself, I actually loved the first Under the Lights against Notre Dame. I love the party in the stands afterwards when we came back and beat them. I love the fact that we were able to rush the field when we beat Ohio State a few years back at home. I like the fact that there are some movements towards more accessibility or just a more up-to-date experience as a Michigan fan. I like some of those things. The prices going up indiscriminately, I don't like. The fact that we haven't been able to get our coaching situation squared away in what seems like a decade, I don't like. I did like the fact that we moved away from the it had to be a Michigan man scenario, and I was very much in favor of the Rich Rod hiring, but then the way that it went down and the way that Michigan either supported him or stood by him or didn't, that was troubling. And then going back to Brady Hoke was positive, and that seemed like a good step back in the right direction. And after the first season, things started to come into focus a little bit differently. So it's been a complicated 10 years. I mean, people pine for the Lloyd Carr days on some level, and yet when Lloyd was around, he was considered antiquated or sort of behind the curve. And it's been a complicated relationship. I mean, as you know, Halsey, a lot of our beefs at games on the road we have as many beefs with Michigan fans as we do with opposing fans. It's just sort of been the culture of being a Michigan fan. There's as much intra-family strife as there is inter-school strife.
Well, certainly no doubt about that. But, the fact is that the last Michigan team I could say I would truly identify with and identify as a Michigan team was probably that 2003 team that lost some games. They lost some games they had no business losing, but fought back against Minnesota, came all the way back, beat a good Ohio State team, and went to the Rose Bowl. Were they outplayed the Rose Bowl? Yeah, but we know what kind of teams USC had. But it's been 10 years, man, of Lloyd Carr, Rich Rodriguez, now Brady Hoke, where Michigan football is not one of the top programs. Well, frankly, it's not the top program in the state, or even close right now, and it's not one of the top programs in this conference. And I never thought I'd be able to say that. I honestly thought, and I know this was Michigan arrogance, but I never thought I'd see Michigan State win 2 in a row against us. Now it's 5-6, and we're heading back to East Lansing. It's unfathomable to me how far Michigan football has fallen, and I need to see the anger from the fans. I need to see I need to see the passion from the fans. And we're not putting up with this. I don't want people patting Brady Hoke on the back for a Lloyd Carr 8-4. I wanted that gone when he was here. Lloyd Carr was a great coach and a great man, but he'll always go down as like a gift. He was no Yost. He was no Chrysler. He was no Schembeckler. I don't care when 97 brought a national championship if Bo never had one. Lloyd Carr was never even close to Bo's level. The Michigan football has been rotting for you might be able to argue since 1994, and except for a half a decade of some kind of resemblance to the program I grew up with in the mid-90s to the early 2000s. It's been a long time since Michigan football has truly been and has truly played Michigan football, and that Michigan football coach was one of the best in the country.
Jose, 2011 was a fun season though, 11-2. I know your biggest problem with 2011 was the loss to Michigan State in that sequence, but 2011, wouldn't you argue that was a positive season, a season that we could be proud of?
In retrospect, yes, to some point. With the last of Lloyd's players, with some of the speed that Rich brought in, yes, that was a decent team, but they didn't play Michigan football. And Denard was an exciting player, but exciting was about the best I could say for him. And 11-2 is fine. It's fine, but that's a down year. That should be a down year. If that's not realistic for Michigan football, then why are we even putting on the winged helmet anymore? Because that's what tradition demands Michigan football to be. 11-2. Go back and look at Michigan State's record the last 5 years, man. When's the last time Michigan's put a record like that 5 straight years in a row? When's the last time?
Why?
This arrogance that's still associated with this program makes me absolutely sick because it hasn't been earned in a long time. And then you got Denard, in a press conference yesterday when the Lions played the Jaguars with a little brother blast again. It's like, where does this arrogance come from? It's such a if that's the only thing this coaching staff brings is an arrogance that these guys are Michigan football players. Well, you know what? Take them because I'm not impressed.
And then what about the 2006 season when we started on that undefeated run for so much of the season until we got to the last 2 games and that classic in Columbus?
You know what? And I know I'm being a dick here, but 2006 and 2011, I kind of equate to the standpoint. These are seasons that bad Michigan teams should be having based on how weak the conference is. And you talk about the parity around the conference. There's no parity around this conference. Look at Ohio State. Look how Michigan State's won the last 5 years. Look at Wisconsin. The Indianas are still the Indianas. The Illinois are still the Illinois. Penn State ain't been worth the shit. There's still only 1 or 2 decent teams in this conference every year, and Michigan hasn't been one of them in 10 years. And they were barely won in 2006, and they were barely won in 2011. Did I love that 2016 for the course of the year? Absolutely. During the loss to Ohio State? Absolutely. Then when I saw how they played against USC in the Rose Bowl, when they went out there, were completely outclassed. They were completely outcoached. That put a grime on the 2006 season that nothing could wipe off. And frankly, you got dumbass little Mike Hart, his little brother Stevens, and everything else. That's not a group of players that I really identify or like very much. What did they accomplish? What's their Big Ten rings? I'll give Mike Hart, Shanahan, and those guys credit. They at least won one as a freshman when Henny could wake up to Braylon Edwards, and that team still lost to Ohio State. So it's been a long time, man. It's been too long. 2006 and 2011 were more enjoyable years, but in retrospect, they're just another brick in the wall.
Talk to me about what your idea. Who is the Alabama model your ideal vision for Michigan football, Halsey? Of late, Alabama of late under Nick Saban.
I would guess so. I would be honest with you. I don't care about the offense. I don't care if the offense runs a complete West Coast offense any kind of spread they want to run. The offense doesn't concern me. It's the attacking defense that kills me. Should a Michigan team always be able to run the ball? You bet they can. Can you imagine Bo's lines running a spread where if you had speed at receivers, and speed at quarterback, and speed at running back, if they would have spread the ball, man, it would have been 12, 15 yards to carry. But everybody knew we were just lining up and going to run through the tackles. Imagine if we spread that out. I want a punishing offensive line. I want first downs. First downs become touchdowns. I want a defense that attacks. I want a defense that is aggressive. I want a defense that creates plays and makes turnovers. And we haven't had that since '97.
So your overarching theme isn't just the results on the field. It's the style of play, the identity, and what constitutes classic Michigan football.
And it's the mental toughness. It's the physical toughness. It's guys like Steve Everett that get their jaw broken, they wire it up, and they're not back there the next week. That's what I'm looking for. Rather than, we've talked about it many times. My favorite football team, my favorite Michigan football team, didn't win the Big Ten and didn't win a national championship. It was the '85 team. They lost a heartbreaker at Iowa. But man, that team came back, and that team fought, that team hit the hell out of you. That was probably the best defense Bo ever had. And that was my team. That's the team I can identify with. It wasn't a Big Ten championship win. It was physical and mental toughness. And I'll tell you what else Michigan football is missing that we haven't seen. There was a time, even under one Carr, that if we lost to somebody, if we lost to Michigan State, if we lost to Washington, we lost to Ohio State, you knew. You could put it in your calendars that we were going to beat that team's ass the next year. You knew it. And we're nowhere near it again. We're nowhere near where we were. Otherwise, the whole damn season would be a revenge tour.
Well, you're definitely losing your voice at some point this season if you're fired up in the season preview.
Voice is almost already shot. I got kicked. I got forced into football early this year, man. I'm traveling all week for work. I had to pack my truck for the tailgate a week early, so I packed it last night. So the truck's already ready to go. I just got to pull it out and park in the tailgate spot.
All right, well, let's break down the season quickly and sort of go through each game and just talk about where you see us coming out. We'll start with Appalachian State, August 30th, Halsey. This is a revenge tour game, from 2007's what MGO Blog calls the horror. And the reality is that from a unscientific survey of Michigan fans, this seems like the worst idea that has ever come across anybody's desk to have been approved for Michigan football. There seems to be nothing to gain from a victory here. We have everything to lose, and it's not going to repair or mend that wounds from 7 years ago, Halsey. I expect us to win the game. Any thoughts on Appalachian State?
I expect to win the game, and I would put them on schedule for the next 10 years for one simple reason. And this is the reason I understand why this game should have been played anyway. I'm sure Brandon didn't think about this. I'm sure Brandon was only thought about the pregame hype and that a smaller team could bring. But if you go through the record books, there's only a handful that have winning records against the University of Michigan.
Yeah. And
I don't want my son going through the media guide saying, Dad, who the hell is Appalachian State, and why are we 0-1 against them?
Right.
So yeah, bring them in 10 years in a row, and then I'll think about whether I forgive them for 2007 yet or not. But that wasn't. There's nothing to forgive from Appalachian State. They came in, looked at the big bad wolf, pulled down his pants, gave him a wedgie over his goddamn head, and kicked him in the ass. And that's all Michigan football was this year.
When you said big bad wolf and then pulled down their pants, I was a little concerned with where you were going with that.
Well, big just means he's tall.
Next game, Halsey, Notre Dame on the road. Notre Dame having some academic fraud issues going on. Apparently,
no, not the Irish. They've been squeaky clean to Lou Holtz.
So
they sold their soul when they hired Lou Holtz. They sold their soul when they hired Brian Kelly. Have at it, Irish. I think we should win the game. If we don't, I'll be highly disappointed. But we dominated that team last year, and I would hope we would dominate them this year.
Yeah, I think the game on the road without those personnel losses for Notre Dame would have been a little bit more in terms of more in favor of Notre Dame, but now I think it's more of a 50-50. I think that we can probably pull it out. I think it would be a big boost to the season and can get us on a streak that could land us at 6-7-0 before we get to Penn State, Michigan State. Which brings me to Miami of Ohio. Halsey, our annual Mac Attack team should be a walkover. Any thoughts on Miami of Ohio?
No, just another grave to fill.
Brings us to Utah. Utah under Urban Meyer was a threat, Halsey, this year. I don't see this being much of a challenge. I expect a victory. I'm hoping that we'll be 4-0 at this point. Thoughts?
Yeah, we better be.
Minnesota can't seem to beat us no matter where we play them. We just seem to always beat them. I feel almost bad for the Golden Gophers. They've had a lot going on with their head coach, Jerry Kill, now coming into Michigan this season. Hopefully Michigan's on a 4-0 streak. Coming through this game, I see it as 5-0. Any thoughts on Minnesota?
Win that Big Ten opener. Yep. Chuck stays in Ann Arbor.
Now we go to Rutgers. Rutgers joining the Big Ten, finally Halsey some official recognition of all the New Jersey kids that come to Ann Arbor.
Hey, I'm excited for new places to tailgate, new stadiums to see. So they're going to expand. I love the idea of taking the kids to New York or to Washington, D.C. every other year. So, yeah, we no problem with the Carolinites.
I assume there's a VU in New Jersey?
Oh, if I'm in New Jersey, I'm going to the Bing.
Oh, of course. Bada bing. How could I forget the Sopranos reference, Halsey? Next, we got Penn State at home. Halsey, is this a revenge game or is this another disappointing loss? I mean, is this a revenge victory?
After last year's circus, this should be a victory. With another night game with the atmosphere, should be an easy Michigan victory. If it's not, then I'm already worried.
Now, I know where your heart lies, Holes, but would you put money next week in East Lansing, October 25th against Michigan State?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, I don't even think I'm going to the game. After the way we played last year, I think I just as soon watch it in my man cave, or you know what, maybe take the wife up to the UP, do a color tour, go up to the Grand Hotel in October there on Mackinac Island and just watch the game from the TV. Because you know what? If that's as far as I'm concerned, Michigan is gutless, heartless, and hopeless until they show me otherwise, especially until they show me otherwise in East Lansing.
Basically, you need Michigan to beat Michigan State. That needs to happen stat.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if they don't win, it better come down to the last play. And it better come down to just them having a little bit older team. And it better not come down to mental toughness. It better not come down to physical toughness. We better not be pushed around like we were last year. Because as far as I'm concerned, even if we're undefeated going into that game, if we lose to Michigan State, and it's an embarrassment, then I don't want Brady Hook on the goddamn bus.
You know who seems to have benefited a lot from Michigan's lack of excellent play the last few years against Michigan State is Mrs. SuperFan.
Sure. Let's go with that.
If she's getting a trip to the UP during Sparty Week versus you going to East Lansing, then that's a +1 for her.
That's true. That is true.
All right, Holz, moving into next week, we have Indiana at home. Indiana gave us a run last year, high-scoring game. Never really worried about Indiana. Any concerns about this year's edition?
That will be a down week. I know we have the bye week before them.
Right.
But, you know, I don't know what kind of hangover we'll have from East Lansing. And frankly, I don't know I have any faith in our defense until the genius Madison shows me something.
Well, it looks like our bye week is actually between Penn State and Michigan State.
Oh, I thought it was after Michigan State.
Yeah. Then we go to Northwestern. Halsey, usually, you know, a game that we can be confident in. We obviously have had troubles with Northwestern over the years. Going to Chicago is always a good time. It's a virtual home game. It is away, but Michigan's presence in Chicago is so strong. We always seem to have a good turnout. Any concerns at Northwestern this year?
No, we seem to have Northwestern's number, and until, of course, we don't. So I'm going to guess a Michigan win.
And then with the expanded schedule, with the expanded Big Ten, expanded college football season, we experience another bye week before Maryland going to the East Coast. Not going to the East Coast, but bringing an East Coast team to Ann Arbor, part of the new Big Ten. Halsey, any concerns with Maryland? Any thoughts on the Terrapins joining the Big Ten?
Turtle soup. Love the idea of taking the kids to DC.
And then bump, 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 on the road in Columbus at Ohio State. Haven't won there since my junior year? Senior year? No, junior year. Yeah, wow, junior year. Thoughts on the big game? Braxton Miller out for the season. Loss of 4 offensive linemen that need to be replaced. Halsey, what's your take on the Buckeyes of 2014?
The Buckeyes own us until we prove they don't. That's my take. I always have a lot of respect for Ohio State. Whether how clean they are or whatever, it's not, whatever. It's Michigan and Ohio State. I got a lot of respect for that team. Doesn't matter if they're up, doesn't matter if they're down. It seems like, except for the last year under Rodriguez, we'll bring our best game in Columbus. I don't know that we'll win it, but I guess we'll play halfway decent.
Tallying it up, Halsey, doing the math, coming up with the final tabulation. What is your prediction on the Michigan SuperFan Review 2004 season preview for the Michigan Wolverines this season?
I'm going to be a pessimistic optimist and say we're going to be 10-2, and I'm still going to want to kick every goddamn one of them out of Ann Arbor.
Halsey, 10 wins is optimistic, certainly. I love a 10-win season. I mean, maybe that's just speaks to where we are these days. But I'm still sticking to my 9-3, and I'm not saying it pessimistically. I'm just trying to be very realistic about it. I don't like to be disappointed anymore in my adult age. I don't have a tolerance for crying like I did as a child, but now I just try to keep my expectations tempered.
Wouldn't it be nice if one of them one time felt that bad again? Wouldn't it be nice for us to have a program again where just one loss would devastate us? Now it's like, smoke a cigar, let's go eat it, let's go have a hit cheeseburger. It doesn't really matter, it's just one more loss. Let's get Michigan back where it's supposed to be, to the point where when my kids go to games and we lose, that my kids cry. Let's get back to those days. Because that's where Michigan football is supposed to be.
That's where it was for me as a kid, Halsey. One loss would just do me in for the week, for the month.
That's the way I was a kid, too, if you consider like 25, 26, 27 a kid.
Halsey, I still think you're a kid. I think you're just you're a man-child.
That is probably an accurate way to put me.
Hopefully we're going to get a webcam and a microphone for you so we can get you on this interesting thing, this Google Hangouts on air that we have going. We should be able to broadcast live, get live tweets, feedback, comments on the podcast as we're doing it. I guess it'd be a broadcast at that point. So hopefully we'll be able to sustain this and then people can come check us out.
Everybody should be thankful they don't see me now. I'm shirtless in short shorts, and chest hair blazing out, lounging.
Yeah, it's a good thing that no one can see that right now.
I look almost like a fat bear rug right now.
Try to manscape for next week.
A little manscape, I can do that.
Jose, I always give you the last word on the Michigan SuperFan Review, the 2004 season opener, the season preview. Well, can you take us to a positive place before the start of the season?
Absolutely. It's still Michigan football. It's still the winningest program in college football history. It's time for the Michigan fans to demand their program back, to take their program back.
Amen. I love it. That's the last word. Michigan fans, this was the season preview of the Michigan SuperFan Review with Reza Breakstone and Jeff Holzhausen. Holz, SuperFans I and II, you know what to do in the house.
I like it. There's our shtick. We need one.
We need one. And if any of the fans have any other ideas, please let us know. Now, for the first time, I think, ever in the history of the review, we're actually going to be at the same location 2 seasons in a row. It's still on YouTube at RezaBR22 and at MichiganSuperFan.com. Hole's website still alive and well, still kicking up, doing good business, huh?
Michigan SuperFan. I get the one stats every month, and I'm like, really? That many people? That many assholes? Taking a look at this nonsense? Yeah, still alive and well.
Excellent.
It's still free, because the SuperFan ain't ever selling out. Not to Dave Brandon, not to any other asshole.
You're like the Green Bay Packers of superfans.
I'll take that anytime.
Holes, we're also live on Twitter at MISuperFan and at Reza Breakstone. And then please, fans, we'll be doing these live broadcasts. We want to interact. We want questions. We want to have feedback. So catch us next week. We'll announce when we're going to be broadcasting, and then we'll do a Google Hangout with hopefully with you, Halsey, and then with any other fans who want to hang out with us.
Awesome.
Awesome. Sounds good. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Reza Breakstone here for Jeff, SuperFan I Holthausen. God bless and go blue. Or go blue and God bless.
Either way.